Hi folks, HR Funk here with part 2 of my review and evaluation of the Derya DY9 Island pistol. And I never intended for there to be a part 2 of this review, but if you saw part 1, you know that I conducted a detailed shop review of this handgun. Then I went out to the range with the idea of shooting my way all the way through the range report, and unfortunately I fired one segment, which I'll show you here momentarily, and no sooner did I finish that until it started to rain like crazy, to the point I could not put my cameras down range without the danger of them being destroyed. So I've had to wait and then come back to the range today to finish up this review. So in this segment, I'm going to pick things up right where I left off. The first thing I'll do is show you the only drill that I fired in the last video. That was controlled pairs from a distance of 5 yards, and here's how they went. And here we go, controlled pairs from a distance of 5 yards. By the way, I am starting out with one of the factory magazines, fully loaded with 15 rounds and one in the chamber. Let's see what happens. Ran pretty well. And as I said, we're going to pick things right back up where we left off. I have put a formerly waterlogged target back up on the target board. I was able to salvage that. I covered up the shots that I fired in that first drill with blue stickers. Now I'm going to be starting off with a failure drill. This is going to be 2 shots to the body and 1 shot to the head in rapid succession. Let's see how they go. And no problems at all with failure drills. I've got 5 of the 6 body shots on the heart. 1 of them is off into the right lung. And I've got all 3 good headshots. No problems there at all. There's something about the recoil impulse that's really odd. And I guess maybe it's just so soft shooting and I'm expecting more. But it's throwing me off a little bit. It's kind of different. I think I'll get more and more used to it as I go. And probably the next time I fire a non-ported, non-island barrel 9mm pistol of this sort, it's going to feel like I'm shooting a cannon. But yeah, it is very different. It's hard to explain, actually. So on we go to 15 yards, and from this distance I'm going to be firing 3 shots to the body. I know I usually shoot 5, but I've got to conserve my ammunition a little bit for some of the things I'm going to do later on. So 3 shots to the body from 15 yards. Can't see it from here. Let's go see where they hit. Not bad at all from that distance of 15 yards. I've got a nice little 3-shot group there, a little bit low, and I've got to say I'm having a little bit of trouble seeing that front post. I think because the rear fiber optic is nice and bright, and I've got that contrast against the front post that's just not illuminated, not bright, no nothing, just a plain black sight. So it's a little, this is a pistol that I really feel like I have to get acquainted with over time, but certainly the accuracy from 15 yards is nothing to sneeze at. Now, let's go back to 25 yards and I'll try 3 shots to the body from there. So here we go, 3 shots from 25 yards. Once again, I can't see him from here. Let's go down range. Not a bad group from 25 yards for those 3 shots. The shots are a little low. I was actually aiming up here. So for me, the DY9 is hitting just a bit low, and that's probably just because I'm not used to these sights. But the reason I've been conserving my ammunition is because I'm going to go ahead and mount an optic, and I want to try a couple of these drills with the optic mounted to see just exactly what the performance is going to look like in that configuration. So I'm going to go ahead and mount the optic. I'll do a quick 0, then I'll come back and we'll try some shooting again. I am back on the range for yet a 3rd day in a row to try to complete this video. What happened after I finished the last segment that you just saw is I went back under the pavilion to mount the optic to the Derya pistol, and while I was doing that, it started to rain yet again. This time though, it did not rain as hard or as long, so I thought this will be okay, I can finish things up. but I ran into some problems mounting the optic to the Island pistol. Specifically, the assortment of screws that I brought with me were all too long to fit the screw holes in the slide of the DY9. They are relatively shallow and they require a fairly short screw, and as I said, all of the ones that I brought were too long and I had no way to shorten them while I was out here to try to make them work with the Olight sight that I was attempting to mount. So I tried to get by and get it as tight as I could, and that led to some accuracy problems, not surprisingly. And ultimately, I threw in the towel yesterday, decided to go home, mount the optic properly, and then come back today to finish the video, because I really do want to shoot some of these drills with the optic mounted. And reason being, as you saw, the mechanical sights are capable of pretty good accuracy. But what I'm noticing is, as I come up and try to rapidly acquire my sights and get a sight picture and squeeze off shots, the rear sight is nice and bright with those fiber optics, but the front sight just takes a little bit longer to get to get in my vision, to catch with my eyes and be able to squeeze off the shot. And I think with an optic attached, that's going to negate that issue. With the standard DY9 pistols, not the Island pistols, they have a fiber optic front sight, and it would be interesting to be able to shoot one of those side by side with the Island pistol to see how much difference that might make, but I don't have one of the standard DY9 pistols, so I'm going to try this way. I'm going to shoot my way through the defensive drills again using that optic. Once again, it is the Osight X that I have mounted. We'll see how things go. So anyway, I'm going to start with the defensive drills right now. First up is going to be controlled pairs, again from a distance of 5 yards, and let's get right to it. The accuracy in general is very similar to what we saw with the controlled pairs with the mechanical sights, and I am noticing that reduction in muzzle flip and the lighter recoil feel that's helping me get those shots on target. So now let's move back to 7 yards, and again I'll try the failure drill from there. This is 2 shots to the body and 1 shot to the head from that distance. We'll see how that goes. From that distance of 7 yards, all of the body shots are on the heart. That's pretty impressive. And I've got 2 really good headshots. This one I pulled a little bit off to the right. Still, it's staying inside of the circle, so that's a decent shot. I am noticing that difference in muzzle flip and recoil and my ability to get faster follow-up shots on target. So the DY9 Island pistol is living up to its advertising. I'm going to move back to 15 yards now and again try 5 body shots from that distance, and we'll see what they look like. Normally I slow down somewhat for my shots from 15 yards, but I'm going to intentionally shoot these a little faster than usual because again I am exploring just how much difference the porting and the muzzle flip reduction design features in the Island pistol make. So let's see what happens. And it would help if I had reloaded first. Let me get some more ammunition, then I'll try 5 shots. So, 5 shots from 15 yards, take 2. For 5 shots from 15 yards, actually 6 shots now that I think about it, counting that very first one that I fired when I was not able to continue, this is looking very, very good. I've got 4 of the 5 shots, 4 of the 6 shots rather, on the heart. One of them is just below the heart, right down here into the spine. So I've got 5 of the 6 right down the center line of the body, and one of them that I pulled out here into the right lung. So that really gives you an idea, shooting at that shot tempo, how little disturbance I'm getting during the recoil and counter recoil phase of the pistol cycle, and I'm able to keep those shots very well centered. I'm happy with that, as I said, shooting at that tempo. So let's go back to 25 yards. I don't think I'm going to shoot quite that fast from there, but I'm going to speed it up over what I typically shoot from 25 yards, and we'll see what that group looks like. As promised, 3 shots from 25 yards, and what the heck, let's make it interesting and try 3 headshots. There's 3 down range. You all know where they hit. I don't. I'm going to have to go look. That's 3 for 3 on those 25-yard headshots, and I did actually slow those down a little bit. I didn't shoot them as fast as I thought I was going to because I was trying a little more for precision here, and there's certainly nothing wrong with the accuracy that I'm seeing out of the DY9 pistol. So now we've reached the moment of truth. Is the DY9 Island pistol a 7-yard tack driver? I'm going to put a tack in the target, I'm going to back off to 7 yards, and we're going to find out. Here we go, folks. I have got 3 rounds loaded in the magazine. I've got that tack in the target. The O-Sight X is zeroed at 25 yards, so from this distance of 7 yards, I'm going to have to hold over. And my first shot, as always, is just an estimate at about how far I need to hold over. Let's see how closely I can estimate. I don't think I can estimate much closer than that. All right, shot number 2. There we go, on the second shot. Yes, the Derya DY9 Island pistol is a tack driver. So yes, the DY9 Island pistol is a tack driver. I was going to take some additional footage out at the range, and I do have just a little bit more, but I decided to come back here to the shop and finish things up because for some of the things that I'm going to be discussing, I thought it would be more efficient time-wise to just tell you what took place rather than show you the video footage, which ended up being pretty lengthy. Along with everything that I've tested up to this point, there were 2 things that I was wondering about with regard to the Island pistol. The first has to do with how much velocity loss there might be as a result of the 4 ports in the top of the Island barrel. So for a lot of competition shooting these days, that's not so much of a concern because unless you have to meet a certain power factor, which I don't know how often that's done anymore, but if not, then really any sort of velocity loss or loss in terms of kinetic energy or anything like that isn't that big a deal. However, if someone is going to be using the Island barrel pistol for defensive use, then depending upon exactly how much velocity and energy are lost as a result of the ports could have a bearing on how their defensive ammunition performs. So for that reason, I wanted to try to find out just exactly how much velocity was going to be lost as a result of the ports. The best way to do this would be to have a non-ported standard DY9 upper half slide and barrel that I could install on this grip frame and then shoot the same exact ammunition with the chronograph, recording the velocities to see exactly how much difference there was, but I don't have the complete upper half barrel and slide assembly. So what I did was use my Ruger RXM as my non-ported pistol and of course the DY9 Island as the ported version. Using the exact same ammunition, these pistols have about the same barrel length and they have other similarities that I'll talk about in a little bit with the next thing that I'm going to discuss. But first off, I just wanted to see what the velocities were going to look like. So using the same ammunition, and I started off with the ammunition that I've been using all throughout the video up to this point, which was House of Pain Munitions 124 grain full metal jacket ammunition. Shooting from the bench with the chronograph right next to me, I fired 5 shots of that ammunition and recorded the velocities, and the average velocity with the DY9 Island pistol with that House of Pain Munitions 124 grain FMJ ammunition was just shy of 1,000 feet per second. In fact, it was 998.2 feet per second. When I shot the exact same ammunition through the Ruger RXM, it had an average velocity of 1004.6 feet per second. So both of these were running just within a few feet of each other, feet per second of each other, of 1,000 feet per second. So very, very little difference whatsoever. In fact, the difference was less than 7 feet per second between the RXM and the DY9 Island. When I computed that, that came out to less than 1% velocity difference between the two handguns. So I also wanted to test a defensive load, and I took along a box of SIG 124 grain V-Crown ammunition, and I expected that was going to be a warmer load, and it was. Out of the Island pistol, there was an average velocity with that ammunition of 1,134 feet per second. Out of the RXM, there was an average velocity of 1,180 feet per second. So between those two, there was a difference of about 46 feet per second. And when I ran the numbers on that, it came out to about a 4% difference in velocity between the RXM and the Derya DY9 Island pistol. So again, I don't think that's enough to really have any bearing on the performance of a defensive hollow point. There was a measurable difference with the SIG V-Crown, but not a significant difference, I don't think, if you'll pardon the pun. And with the House of Pain 124 grain FMJs, there was virtually no difference between the two handguns at all. The other thing I was curious about was to see whether or not I could actually visibly see a difference in the muzzle rise or feel a difference in the recoil impulse between the DY9 Island and the uncompensated Ruger RXM. To try to make this as close as I could to an apples to apples comparison, I weighed these two handguns, and unloaded with a magazine installed, they both weighed 24.1 ounces. So I thought that, along with their dimensional similarities, would make them close enough to try to see if we could tell any difference in muzzle rise and recoil. Once again, I used the House of Pain Munitions 124 grain full metal jacket ammunition for the first test, and when you look at the video of these two, it goes so quickly you can't really see anything, which was part of the reason I decided not to use the video that I recorded in this segment. If anyone wants to loan me a high-speed camera, that would probably be the way to capture some difference. But I was able to get still photographs of the handguns in recoil, and if you look closely at the photographs, you'll notice that they are all right at the point where the fired casing was being ejected from the ejection port. So this was as close as I could get them to the exact same instant in the recoil cycle. And if you look at these two photos that I'm going to flash up on the screen now, the DY9 pistol is on your left and the Ruger RXM is on your right. And with the House of Pain ammo, you can see there is just slightly more muzzle rise on the part of the RXM than there is on the part of the Derya Island pistol. But that was a fairly low pressure ammunition, so I would not expect there to be a tremendous difference. However, with the SIG V-Crown, it produced significantly more velocity. It had more pressure to vent through the ports, which should improve the functioning of the ports with that particular ammunition when it comes to dampening muzzle rise. And once again, when I flash these two pictures up, the Derya DY9 Island is on the left and the Ruger RXM is on the right. And you notice this time around, there is significantly more rise on the part of the RXM than there is with the Island pistol. Derya claims that there is a reduction in muzzle flip of 25% using the Island barrel and a reduction in felt recoil of 12%. I can't look at these photographs and say absolutely there is a 25% difference in the muzzle rise of the RXM as opposed to the Island pistol. What I can say is there is a visible difference, and for no more difference than there is in velocity, I think that the DY9 Island pistol is performing very, very well. I wanted to try one more thing before I left the range, and that was running a plate rack. It's actually not a rack, but it's hanging plates that are installed at the range where I was shooting. And I've done this many times with a lot of other handguns. I'm shooting from a distance of about 25 feet, so just over 8 yards. And I decided to try to see just how quickly I could put a bullet on each one of those plates. And here's how that went. So let's see if the recoil reduction qualities of the DY9 Island pistol help me if I try to run some steel plates. I'm going to shoot these as fast as I think I can accurately squeeze off these shots, and we'll see what happens. You know, I'd say it helped. Wow, that was actually fun and didn't seem to be too hard. I've got to say, I don't think I have ever put a bullet on all 6 of those plates that quickly with any of my other handguns when I have tried that, as I did with the Island pistol, and that seems to bear out the efficacy of this system. It does absolutely seem to limit muzzle rise and help allow the shooter to get quick shots on target virtually as fast as possible. So I thought that was pretty impressive, and by the way, that was my first time running through that. I didn't shoot it a dozen times and then show you all the absolute best one of the bunch. That was my very first time, and I decided to stop while I was ahead. So now let me give you some final thoughts regarding the DY9 Island pistol. There are a lot of things I like about this Derya pistol. I like the direct optic mount for an RMR pattern optic, so I don't have to worry about plates or anything else. I can just direct mount it, although you need to make sure you have the proper length screws so you don't run into the problem that I did. And these are 6x32 screws. I'm not sure what the length is that's appropriate. I just searched around until I found ones that were short enough and then mounted the O-Sight X to this pistol. I like the general appearance of the pistol. I like the feel. I like the configurability of the grip with regard to all the different back straps and the fact that you can either have the mag well or not have the mag well, and you even get an additional magazine base plate, so that's nice. The 15-round magazines fed perfectly. The pistol fired, extracted, ejected, and all of that just all the way through the entire time that I was using it, all 3 days that I was shooting this pistol. The only functioning issue I ran into was there were some times with the factory magazines where the slide did not lock open after the last shot was fired. And that seemed to kind of go away the longer I shot the pistol. So maybe there was a rough engagement surface for the slide stop that had to wear off a little bit, or maybe the spring that powers the slide stop needed to get a little bit of use and sort of loosen up or a little bit. But in any case, like I said, that seemed like it went away. The trigger is okay. It's not what I would call a match trigger. As I said when I was talking about it specifically in part 1 of this video, I think it's a little better than the average Glock, or at least a little smoother. It breaks at just shy of 5 pounds, but it's certainly usable. And as you saw when I was working my way through all those different drills, there was really not a great deal of trouble keeping shots going where I wanted them to go, which brings me to accuracy. And I think the accuracy was pretty good. And whether I was shooting defensive drills, whether I was shooting steel plates, whether I was shooting the tack or what have you, the accuracy seemed to be pretty decent. So if someone was looking at this handgun for use in competitive endeavors, I think it would be a pretty good pistol and coming in at a relatively low price point. The last thing I guess I'll mention in the pro category is all of the accessories that come along with the DY9 Island pistol, so it's pretty nicely appointed. For cons, probably the biggest one is this front sight. And when I bring the pistol up, the rear sight is so bright and it's so highly visible that it seems like that front sight, which is just a flat black square post, kind of gets lost. If there was something to make it a little more highly visible, now of course I could put some white paint on there or something to try to do it myself, but that's one of the things I just didn't care for, and I really felt like after I added the optic and I was shooting through the drills and doing all the other shooting that I was doing, that it just seemed to bring the handgun to a new dimension, because it felt very, very easy to put shots on target where I wanted them to go once I installed the optic, and I didn't have to try to find that front sight when I was bringing the pistol up to my eyes. There's really not much else in the con category with this handgun. I think if you're looking at the Derya DY9 Island, it would be a pretty good handgun for most things. I suppose one other thing in the con, with regard to defensive use, the ported barrel, I can envision some scenarios where that would not be ideal. Particularly if you're struggling with someone and maybe the pistol is in some odd angle close to your body and the ports vent onto you, onto some exposed skin or something like that, that could be an issue. If somehow, you would be looking down with eyes that were not protected, you potentially could have some issues there. So for defensive use, probably I would look at the standard DY9. And the nice thing about that is it's MSRP'd about $200 less than the Island pistol. But if you're looking for something that's fun to shoot, something you might want to use, as I said, in some competitive endeavors, then take a look at the DY9 Island. I think it's a pretty decent buy. In any case, that's the video for today, and I was starting to think this video was cursed, folks, because it seemed like between rain and some of the other issues I was having and one thing and another, I think I probably put more effort into completing this video than I ever have another handgun review. But if you have any questions or comments, as always, make sure you forward those to me. Remember, stop by my website, check out the news and information page to see all the latest things that are going on with me and the channel. Oh, and one quick thing, and hopefully YouTube doesn't demonetize the video because of this. The official Target sponsor for the channel, Targets Online, has now provided me with a discount code for my viewers. Go to my website, check out the products page, look for the Targets Online logo there, and you will see that discount code listed below. That'll save you some bucks from Targets Online if you decide to make a purchase. Anyway, see you next time, folks. And until then, good shooting. Bye-bye.